All right, today we are pulling back the curtain on something really fascinating. We're going to decode the unseen rules of influence, these hidden patterns that connect ancient battlefields to modern boardrooms. Let's dive right in.
So, what could Sun Tzu, the legendary Chinese general, possibly have in common with Chris Voss, a former top FBI hostage negotiator? And what connects them to John C. Maxwell, the leadership guru, and Ryan Holiday, a guy who literally wrote the book on media manipulation? I know, it sounds like the setup for a really strange joke, but it's actually the key puzzle we're solving today. These people are all connected by a powerful, invisible thread.
And there's the answer. Turns out they are all absolute masters of influence. And they all operate, whether they know it or not, by a very similar unwritten set of rules for shaping outcomes. So our job today? To make those unwritten rules, well, written. Let's get started with rule number 1. Okay, rule 1 is see the board. Before you even think about making a move, you have to understand the entire game. Real strategy doesn't start with action. No, it starts with absolute clarity, with a full 360-degree awareness of what's actually going on.
For a general like Sun Tzu, seeing the board was totally literal. I mean, it meant knowing the terrain, the weather, the supply lines, the timing, the whole physical landscape of the fight. If you don't know that stuff, any move you make is just a blind gamble. Now, let's jump forward a couple of thousand years to a completely different kind of battlefield, the modern team. The leadership expert John C. Maxwell calls this the law of the big picture. For a leader, seeing the board means you have to understand the ultimate goal. And, this is the crucial part, make sure every single person on your team sees exactly how their job, their little piece of the puzzle, contributes to that big win. But what if the board isn't a place at all? What if it's the mind of the person you're negotiating with? That's where Chris Voss, the former FBI guy, comes in. His game-changing idea is tactical empathy. It's all about seeing the board from their point of view. And notice, it's not about agreeing with them or feeling sorry for them. It's about deeply understanding what makes them tick, their hopes, their fears, their motivations. And this is just a brilliant example of how you see the board in our world right now. Ryan Holiday basically says that if you want to understand online media, you have to see the economic system underneath it all. The board isn't about truth or journalism, it's about traffic, because traffic is money. Every single headline is filtered through that one simple question: will people click on this? So once you can actually see the entire board, you get to move from just watching to actively shaping what happens next. This is where you stop just playing the game and you start setting the rules of engagement yourself. Now, what's so cool about this quote from Sun Tzu is that the baits he's talking about weren't just for trapping an enemy. They were a way to control their movement, to get them to go exactly where he wanted them to go. He was literally framing the physical layout of the battle before a single sword was drawn. Chris Voss gives us a powerful verbal tool that does the same thing. It's called mirroring. It's a way to frame a conversation using the other person's own words. It's ridiculously simple, but it works like magic to build a connection and get them to reveal more, and they often don't even realize they're doing it. It sounds almost too simple to be real, right? But it taps into this deep human need to explain and connect. You just listen carefully, repeat a few of their key words back to them, and then you just go silent. That silence is like an open door, and they feel almost compelled to walk through it and tell you more. Let's make this super practical. So imagine your boss says, hey, let's make 2 copies of all the paperwork. Now, you could ask, what do you mean by that? But that can sound a little challenging, right? A little aggressive. Instead, just mirror them. You say, I'm sorry, 2 copies? With a curious tone. It invites them to explain their thinking without making them defensive at all. And here's the media version of this. Ryan Holiday was a master at framing conversations because he gave bloggers exactly what their system needed. He wouldn't pitch some long, complicated story. Nope. He'd pitch a headline designed to get clicks and comments. He framed the story to fit their business model perfectly, which pretty much guaranteed it would get published. Okay, so you can see the board, you can frame the conversation. The third and final rule is all about execution. It's about finding those critical points, those moments of opportunity, the leverage that let you actually achieve your goal. For Sun Tzu, this was just common sense. You don't attack your enemy where they're strongest. That's just a waste of time and resources. Leverage comes from finding where they are most vulnerable, their weak points, their unguarded supply lines, and putting just the right amount of pressure there. And it's amazing. You see this exact same idea pop up in the world of teamwork with John C. Maxwell.
Just like an army is weakest at its vulnerable points, a team's potential is held back by its weakest link. So finding leverage in this case means you have to identify that weak link and then either strengthen it or maybe even remove it to protect the whole team. Now, Chris Voss has this fantastic name for this kind of ultimate leverage. He calls them black swans. These are the things you don't even know you don't know. There are the hidden motivations, the secret deadlines, the unknown pressures that the other person has. And if you can uncover one of these black swans, it can change the entire game in an instant. Okay, so I know what you might be thinking. These are big, grand strategies from absolute masters in their fields. But here's the most important part. These rules aren't just for generals or FBI negotiators. You can actually use these same ideas in your everyday life. Let's just break it down. Seeing the board isn't just for a hostage crisis. It's understanding what pressures your boss is under before you walk in and ask for a raise. Framing the conversation with a simple technique like mirroring can turn a huge fight with a friend into a calm discussion. And finding the leverage? That could be as simple as finding out a potential landlord really needs to rent their apartment fast, which gives you the power to negotiate a better deal. And all of this brings us to one final, really critical thought. John Maxwell often quotes the philosopher Friedrich Nietzsche to make this powerful point. It is so easy to get stuck on one specific way of doing things, one path, and just stubbornly stick to it, even when it's clearly not working. See, these rules of influence, they aren't a rigid path. They're a toolkit for helping you reach a goal. Seeing the board, framing the conversation, finding the leverage, they're all just tools. And that really leaves us with one last question for you to think about. Are you focused on the path you've always taken, or are you focused on the goal you actually want to achieve? Thanks for joining me.